There appears to be a psychological issue in the Christian community today where they teach that, where people end up teaching a lot of times that if you sinned again after you repent, then you never meant it and you're probably not a real Christian. And so I call it a fear. It's a psychological problem because we're supposed to repent all day, every day about what we eat and everything, about our appetites getting out of control. In other words, you're going to battle with your appetite every day, your stomach, specifically and literally. And so your mind has those kind of appetites all day too. And so we have to repent all day every time we get a chance and think about it. We want to repent and say a prayer, and uh, you know, so you can do that even subconsciously and on the regular basis and accept it, and then clarify your if you're coming to God in prayer and thinking about something or meditating on something, you gotta just feel like you're walking with God and praying and thinking with the Spirit and not by yourself. And but you have to be repentant to do that. You can't just commune with God and find wisdom if you're not repentant of something, or but you're able to determine stuff and make decisions on your own. Sure. Anyhow, the point is they do it because I think because they're trying to scare people out of tragic sins. So some sins, like my appetite's not always tragic right away. It can add up, right? And it can become a stroke or anything else, right? But or acid reflux. There's a lot of stuff. Or the fact that my memory wasn't working good recently and now it's getting better already. Um, so it's not great. I'm about to forget what I'm going to say. But you have, what they do is they don't want you sinning the sin of murder, getting angry and sinning the sin of murder. But most of all, the big ones, the tempting ones, are appetite sins, like doing the drugs. You get put you around murderers a lot of times if it's street drugs. And so they don't want you doing a drug, except they forget to say, don't do too much caffeine or you'll have a heart attack. But they don't want you doing a drug that will pop your heart, and caffeine will do that, by the way, if you do too much. But it's in coffee, it's not in powder form, and it's not in smoking form where it would pop your heart a lot faster, right? So in the coffee and the teas, the natural teas, they help your appetite. They do something to your stomach with the diuretic and everything, the dehydration effect. They stop you from wanting to do too many at once, right? But if you did, you might have a heart attack or a stroke. Anyhow, so that's why I say legalize trees, leaves, and teas, because it's all a big trick. If they could make powder forms and smoke crack caffeine forms, they could make that kind of forms if you got made coffee and tea illegal. So and they'd get rid of the pill, and the pill goes in you slower. So the point is, the Bible doesn't say it's a sin to take medicine either, and we've taken that out of context to scare, because we want to scare people, scare kids away from using drugs. But that lie, when you're not honest, that's not intellectually honest. When you're not honest about that, there's a lot of people who see other people, oh, it didn't hurt this person, and they don't believe the authority. So you should, I think it's better to tell the truth, and then to tell the real truth, that the street drugs, man, these people will kill you. They'll put something in there that blacks you out so you don't remember anything. They'll put something in there that'll kill you automatically. But they want to kill you mostly just to steal from you, get your money, or because they've grown into love with the power, and they like to be the boss, and they have this real power struggle problem, and they like to hurt people. That's way worse than the risk of the drugs. It's bigger even but it's also a big risk because those are the ones that put stuff in it, right? So, uh, so people, they say if you ever mess up and relapse or this or that, then you were never serious. You never. But the truth about when it comes to those things, those are like appetite sins, and those are hard things you have to struggle with your whole life. But there's ways to change your habits, and I replaced chocolate with grape juice and milk. I mix, and that helps me stay off chocolate more. Or I'll do cinnamon and cloves and ginger with some honey, stuff like that. And those are good for you. So I don't know if you have it. I won't go into the nutrition. I'm sorry. Well, I will. I'll make a point. If you do too many antioxidants that are good for you, and you have a weak kidney, your kidney has to process all that. So you don't want too many antioxidants on your kidneys. But I take chances on it a lot and just make sure I get a lot of water, because I like antioxidants. I feel like I'm cleaning myself out fast, but I can't measure it, so you got to be careful with that. But anyhow, so the truth is, though, you're supposed to repent regularly, and it doesn't mean you're not if the fact is, if you don't keep repenting, if you don't repent, That's the main thing that shows you're not a Christian. And certainly you don't want to do the more tragic sins. God forgives. He died on the cross and he forgave. He actually defeated death, which means he can forgive murder. So we can forgive Charlie Kirk's killer, but doesn't mean that we're pardoning him. We need to make it clear that it's not acceptable to do that in society. So he can be forgiven by Christ. We want him to hear the word and the gospel and choose salvation, choose heaven over hell, because God defeated death. Jesus defeated death and showed us he can do it, and he has that power to let him in. If just like the thief on the cross who asked for if he could go to paradise, he trusted in Jesus that day on the cross, and he said, "Today thou shalt be with me in paradise." He had always been a thief until the last day of his life, and he went to heaven. So we hope that for everyone. And I can say it more clearly right now because I'm not angry or trying to push the justice part of it and say it's fair and all. But an eye for an eye is fair to take a person's life, especially if mercy's good too. But in prison, if they're in prison and they're still threatening people's lives, go ahead and give them the death penalty, because we need people rehabilitating in prison, not being threatened and scared. We need to, to my opinion, have the freedom of speech in prison and only just have a Bible. I say get rid of other texts in prison and allow them only to have Bible. They've lost some freedom there. So let's give them something that'll actually help them and teach them. But anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up. This is a psychological issue. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom, and that means reverence, in my opinion. Fear, in some ways, fear because you used to believe that you're going to die and you realize you're not perfect. All of a sudden you realize that, so you fear being without God in a sense. So I say, but you reverence God. You have reverence for him at that point. But the verse I meant to say, though, was God does not give the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And so on some of those sin issues, we have hypochondria and stuff. But if you walk in the spirit, you're always looking for something good. You're not being tempted. Stay away from all appearance of evil. I believe that's mostly talking to our minds. Stay away from all appearance of evil, because I can talk to people who I know are evil and have some ought for me, or they want to tempt me. And it's a lot of times, if I'm in the right frame of mind, in my mind, I'm thinking of them as a human being, and I want to give them some truth about God and give them some encouragement and prove to them that they've been tricked by this lie. And I want to point out the lies and evidence that Jesus is real. He rose from the dead and all that, and show the evidence that even in the sunrise, the evidence every day. And so when I'm in those mindsets, I'm not tempted. But when I'm in compromising situations, I've been tempted a lot. And when I'm confused, tired, or this or that, whatever. And so you got to know when you're tempted or not. And I don't think so staying away from all appearance of evil means stay away from this person and that person and that. In general, you set time aside to stay away from them. I mean, bad situations, you don't make your bed with them. You don't pitch your tent with them and all that kind of stuff. But we are supposed to spread the gospel to them and give them the chance to learn and show them hope and all those kind of things. And so I think it's mostly talking to our minds when it says stay away from all appearance of evil. And then obviously you don't camp out with it. But we are supposed to try to communicate with people who are lost and blind. And when we have a light switch we can turn on for them, which is truth, right? All right, so I'm going to go and repent. So if you're not repenting, then you're not a Christian. I would say if you relapse on a medicine, I would say, and you just never want to sober up so you can meditate and think about God and clear your mind and exercise getting your mind to where you can communicate what you believe about Christ's resurrection and salvation and forgiveness on the cross, and the fact that he could have come off the cross and killed us all if he wanted. And he proved that after he rose from the dead, but he forgave us instead. He has the real root power of forgiveness. So, and redemption and reconciliation. And so, because you want to live in, he proved the power of the second life, in other words, too. And that there is a second life. He's the only God that proved there's a second life. There is no other God that's proved that, which gives us the definition of real religion versus false religion. The religion has a God. There's a provable God with some evidence, at least evidence, and with verifiable evidence that he is God by rising from the dead and ascending to heaven later on. So I could keep going here, but I'm going to cut it short. And for not repenting on a regular basis, you can't be perfect. You can't think you're perfect and not tempted to do anything wrong, that you've done everything right in your mind, that everything that you think is perfect. No, you got to repent. If you're not repenting regularly or assessing that you need to repent in a prayer to God, private prayer, not out in front of people, you don't have to do that. And then you're probably not saved because you think you're too perfect to have to repent, that you've never done anything wrong, because you're only looking at the most tragic sins and thinking those are the only sins. If we're angry, we're judging, we're hating, we're envying, we're coveting, lusting, there's all kinds of sins. So we all have to repent. We don't have the power to get ourselves to heaven. And we don't have the power to condemn somebody to hell. Only Jesus does. Depart from me, you worker of iniquity, for I never knew you. That's Jesus saying that in the end. And then at the judgment seat after we die. So, great white throne judgment, maybe, that is. And then there's two judgments. I forget which one's which. But so he's the one that welcomes us into heaven. Well done, thou good and faithful servant, he'll say, if he welcomes you into heaven. Otherwise, he says, depart from me, you worker of iniquity, for I never knew you. So that's speaking to some people who think they knew him, or who claim they knew him but didn't. But he has to really know us, and he can't know us if we think that we're Mr. Perfect instead of him. That's not. We can say we love him and everything else, and claim that he's not part of the Trinity, and then we're calling him a liar. So if we're calling Jesus a liar, then we're not trusting him. So if we really trust him for who he says he is and what he did for us, then he knows us. All right.